There are places in this world that should never be found. And yet, some are drawn to them, as if called by unseen hands. The travelers' footsteps echoed against the crumbling stone as they stepped into the ruined city. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. Above the broken rooftops, the moon cast long, skeletal shadows. And there, nestled between fractured columns and vine-covered ruins, stood an impossible sight, an ancient library, untouched by time. Its massive wooden doors, bound in tarnished iron, bore carvings of forgotten symbols. A cold wind whispered through the cracks, and as if welcoming an uninvited guest, the doors creaked open, on their own. The traveler hesitated before stepping inside. The air was stale, thick with the weight of centuries. Shelves stretched endlessly, disappearing into the darkness above. Candles burned with no visible source of ignition, their flickering light casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own. Books lined every surface, stacked high on tables, scattered across the floor, piled in forgotten corners. Dust coated everything, and yet some of the books appeared untouched. A sound, barely above a whisper, slithered through the silence. At first, it seemed like the rustling of parchment, but then words, soft, urgent, layered upon each other as if many voices spoke at once. "Leave, do not turn the page." The traveler's breath quickened. Their fingers, compelled by a force unseen, reached for a book resting alone upon an ornate pedestal. Its cover was leather, cracked and brittle with age. Strange golden runes shimmered faintly, shifting as if alive. With hesitant fingers, the traveler opened the book. The pages were blank. At first, then, like ink bleeding through forgotten parchment, words began to appear. But these were no ordinary words. They told of footsteps echoing in a ruined city, of an impossible library, of a lone traveler who reached for a cursed book. The traveler's hands began to tremble. The words were writing themselves, recounting their exact movements, their exact thoughts. And then, below the last line, a new sentence began to form, one written in fresh, wet ink. "They are watching you." The air turned heavy. The candlelight flickered violently. The whispering voices grew louder, shifting from warnings to frantic, panicked cries. The bookshelves trembled. The walls groaned. Shadows deepened, stretching toward the traveler like grasping fingers. The traveler turned to run, but the shelves shifted, closing in, forming a maze that had not been there before. "It's too late. You must leave." A slow, chilling creak echoed through the chamber as a figure emerged from the darkness. Hooded, faceless, its presence loomed like an unspoken truth. The traveler stumbled backward. The book was still in their hands, the ink still bleeding onto the page. A final line etched itself before their eyes. Once written, never forgotten. The traveler turned to flee, but the library had already decided. The doors that had opened so easily upon their arrival now stood sealed. The candlelight dimmed, one by one, until all that remained was darkness, and the sound of a book's pages turning on their own. Welcome to the Forgotten Library. You will never leave, but perhaps you can begin again. The shelves stretch endlessly, filled with stories waiting to be read. Some whisper warnings, others promise secrets best left unknown. But now, this is your fate. You will turn the pages of the Forgotten Library forever, and every story you read will be one you can never escape. Just as the final ember of light seemed to fade, a single candle remained, its weak flame flickering in defiance of the consuming darkness. It was just enough to read by. The traveler, resigned and trembling, turned the first page of the next book. The Forgotten Library holds many stories, some lost to time, others waiting to be uncovered. If you wish to read more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, for you never know which tale will call to you next.